In this video, I'm going to work out all the problems on the 3.6/3.7/3.8 worksheet. That was a mouthful. I'm going to go with 1, starting with 1 all the way down to 12, and work them out one at a time. Let's start with number 1. And yes, I already made some mistakes on 1, so I had to start all over. It's always a good sign when you make a mistake on the very first problem. Anyways, if you remember, you can solve inequalities just like you solve equations. You can pretend that the alligator symbol, the inequality symbol, is just like an equals, except if you have one scenario, or actually two scenarios where something special happens. If you add subtract by any number to solve it, you pretend like it's a normal equation and you do not flip the alligator symbol, the inequality symbol. If you multiply or divide by a positive number, again, nothing changes. You pretend like it's an equation, nothing flips. If you multiply or divide by a negative number, then and only then something's different. The inequality symbol flips. So here, if I pretend that this is just a simple equation, the only way to get rid of this plus 3 is to subtract 3 from both sides. And of course, 5 minus 3 is going to be 2, so x is greater than 2. And that's all there is to it. X is greater than 2. Nothing flips here. The inequality symbol does not flip. And it's an open circle heading right, starting with 2. That's all there is to it. That's as simple as number 1 is. Well, the first part of number 1. Let's look at the second part. In the second part, I have to get rid of this minus 8 by doing a plus 8. I'm adding. Doesn't matter what I'm adding. Nothing flips because adding is not one of those exceptions. So in this case, I have x less than or equal to, nothing flipped. So my inequality symbol did not flip because I just added. And it's going to be negative 2. So it's going to be a closed circle heading left at negative 2. Let me double check that real quick. Plus 8, yes. Negative 10, yeah, it's negative 2. And x is, okay. Probably should have given me more room here. Oh well. Closed circle heading in that direction, starting with negative 2. Alright, that's number 1. Any questions? Moving on to 2. With number 2, almost like number 1, we are going to isolate our variable here, the m. 2 is being added. I'm going to subtract 2 from both sides. Okay, that's that. Since I'm subtracting, nothing changes. Subtracting addition is safe. My inequality symbol does not flip. I pretend like it's an equation. So I'm going to have m less than 6 minus 2 is 4. Nothing flipped, nothing changed. And this is open circle heading left, starting with 4. The second half of 2, once again I'm going to isolate the m by getting rid of this. It's a minus 1, I add 1 to both sides. And I'm adding. Adding, subtracting is a safe operation, but in inequalities, nothing flips, nothing changes. Life goes on as normal. So 2.5 plus 1 right here is 3.5. So I'm going to have m is greater than or equals to 3.5. And that's that. Which means I have a closed circle and it heads in the right direction because the alligator symbol is facing its mouth towards the variable. So at 3.5, which is right in between 3 and 4, I'm going to make a closed circle and I'm going to head right. I'm very good at making these number lines today. None of them are really very good for what I'm using them for. Anyways, any questions on number 2? If not, let's take a look at number 3 then. Number 3, similar to 1 and 2, except now we have multiplication and division to work with. Now multiplication and division, we have to be a little bit careful because this is where our exception comes in. And if we multiply or divide by negative, that exception kicks in. In this case, I need to isolate the n, and it's being divided by 2. And the opposite of being divided by 2 is to multiply by 2. By a positive 2. And that's not one of our exceptions. So, is there any flipping that goes on for number 3? Or the first part of 3? No, we're multiplying by a positive number. That's not an exception. We are A-OK to do that. And if we do that, we have some crossing out that happens here, which means that n is greater than or equals to 4. 2 times 2. And that's a 2, not a z. Nothing flips. The inequality symbol will not flip because, again, we're multiplying by a positive. So that we're safe there. Really, I'm really not good at making my number lines. It's a closed circle heading right, so at 4, at the edge of my number line, I want to head that way. Anyways, next, the second half of 3 is actually a little bit interesting. N is being divided by 3. The opposite of being divided by 3 is n is being divided by negative 3. The opposite of being divided by a negative 3 is to multiply by a negative 3. So I get to multiply both sides by a negative 3. Now, is that one of our exceptions? In that case, are we going to flip our inequality symbol or not? Yep, this is the first time where we actually have to flip the inequality symbol because we're either multiplying or dividing by negative. In this case, we are multiplying by a negative, and that's a negative 3. So, yes, negative 3, yes, for sure negative 3. So we have to do our nifty little flip. And I forgot to move this up. My bad. So that was the graph for the first half of 3. So these are gone right here. And 2 times negative 3 is a negative 6. And I have to flip because I'm multiplying by a negative. This is the first time this is happening. So instead of having the sharp end point at the variable, now I have the mouth pointing at the variable. The flip happened. Yes, we're going to call it the flip. Any questions on number 3? Oh, I haven't graphed it yet. That will be a closed circle heading right at negative 6. Ooh, this time I actually got a good number line. Closed circle heading this way. So any questions on number 3? These are all simple problems, and some of these, a combination of these will appear on the quiz. The first half of the next quiz are going to be problems just like this. All right, moving on to 4. All right, with number 4, we have problems that are in many ways similar to the first few that we worked on just a little bit ago. At least, well, they're very similar to number 3. So I have w divided by negative 3, and I want to isolate the w. What is the opposite of being divided by negative 3? It's to multiply by negative 3. Is that one of our exceptions? Yes, it is. Does the sign flip? Most certainly does, because if you multiply or divide by a negative number within an inequality, the sign has to flip, as it will here. These two are gone. They cancel each other out. So I am left with a w. Negative 1 times negative 3 is just a 3. It's a positive 3. And my symbol has to flip, which means instead of pointing its sharp end of the variable, it's now going to point its mouth, or the large end, or the blunt end, whatever makes it work for you. All right. Open circle, heading right at 3. That's the first part of 4. Let's take a look at the second half of 4. W is being divided by 4. We got to get rid of that. So what is the opposite of being divided by 4? It is to multiply by 4. Is this an exception? No. So do I flip my inequality symbol? No, I don't, because I'm multiplying by 4. As long as I multiply or divide by a positive number, and 4 is a positive, I don't have to do anything to my inequality symbol. That's perfect. I don't have to do the flip. So I have w, and since my sign doesn't flip, I'll just write it. Negative 2 times 4 is a negative 8. I am heading right with an open circle in tow. So it's going to be an open circle at negative 8, heading all the way right. East Coast. All right, that was number 4. Any questions? Let's take a look at number 5. All right, with number 5, we have very similar to what we have done before, but now we're going to be using division. Because to isolate this x here, it's being multiplied by 12, and the opposite of multiply by 12 is to divide by 12. Not a problem. We can do that. That's super easy. Did I multiply or divide by a negative number? Nope. I divided by a positive. So should my inequality symbol flip? Yes or no? No. We're safe. We don't have to do the flip. So x, my inequality symbol does not change its direction, stays as it was. And 24 divided by 12 is 2. Open circle. And heading in the left direction. So, open circle, heads left. That was the first part of 5. Let's take a look at the second half of 5. Here we have y multiplied by a negative 3, or a negative 3 being multiplied by y. No matter how you look at it, to get rid of it, you got to divide both sides by a negative 3. To get rid of this multiplied by negative 3. Am I multiplying or dividing by a negative number? Yes, I'm definitely dividing by a negative number there. So should I flip my symbol, my inequality symbol? Yes, the alligator flips. We're going to do the flip here. Yay. Alrighty. Gone, gone. And y here, 9 divided by negative 3 is a negative 3, because 9 divided by 3 is 3, but positive divided by negative is always negative. And since we're doing the flip, sharp end of the variable now, Mouth of the variable now. Flipped. All done except the graphing. Closed circle, heading right. I'm so good at this. Like a pro. Alrighty then. So that's 5. Questions on 5 before we move to 6? Alright, number 6. And I'm going to remember to pull this all the way up. So there we go. Now we should be all good. With number 6, we have very similar to number 5. Surprise, surprise. Let's see here. I need to isolate the m. It's being multiplied by 11. The opposite is to divide by negative 11. Sorry, it's being multiplied by negative 11, so I divide by negative 11 on both sides. Did I multiply or divide by a negative number? The answer is yes. So should I flip my symbol of inequality? The answer is also yes. We are going to do the flip because we multiplied or divided by a negative. In this case, divided by a negative. We are going to do the flip. Gone. Then we have m. And here 33 divided by negative 11 is going to be a negative 3. Because 33 divided by 11 is 3, and positive divided by negative is always negative. Division of different signs. Anyways, mouth at the variable right now, and when we flip it, it's going to be the back towards the variable. Flipped, just like that. Closed circle, heading left at negative 3. That's that. That was the first half of 6. Let's take a look at the second half of 6. We have w being multiplied by 4. The opposite of being multiplied by 4 is to divide by 4, both sides. Are we multiplying or dividing by a negative number? The answer is no, which means we are not flipping our symbol because we did not multiply or divide by a negative. So in that case, gone. W, the symbol stays the same. Negative 8 divided by 4 is a negative 2. Open circle, heading in the right direction. Add negative 2. And that is 6. Let me know if you have any questions. Alright, let's take a look at number 7. 7 is a two-step inequality. And again, don't let the name inequality turn you off. It's just like an equation, so it's just like a two-step equation, except you got to respect that little rule with the multiplying and dividing by negative. So let's solve it. I'm going to get rid of this minus 2 by adding 2 to both sides. I'm adding something, so it doesn't matter what I add or subtract. This inequality symbol does not change. That gives me 4x is greater than 16. Then I have to get rid of this multiplied by 4 by dividing by 4 on both sides, of course. And since I'm multiplying or dividing by a positive number, in this case dividing by a positive number, nothing will change for me. My x is going to be greater than 16 divided by 4 is 4. My inequality symbol does not flip because I am not multiplying or dividing by a negative. Open circle, and it's heading right at starting point of 4. And that is number 7. Let me know if you have any questions. All right. Actually, let's do this. Number 8. Very similar to number 7. It's a two-step inequality. Let's go ahead and crunch it out. I got to get rid of this plus 27. So I'm going to subtract 27 from both sides. Which means I have 3m. I subtracted something, so my sign does not change. 15 minus 27, be careful here because it's a negative 12. Take a second, And make sure you figure that one out. You don't add those by any stretch, and the answer is negative because 27 is a bigger number here. All right, then I gotta simply get rid of this multiplied by 3 here by dividing by 3 on both sides. And since I'm dividing by a positive number, that rule does not kick in. Nothing flips, nothing changes. Which means m is still less than or equal to negative 12 divided by 3 is a negative 4. And that's all that she wrote. Close circle, heading left at negative 4. Questions on number 8? Number 9 is coming up. All right, number 9 is pretty similar to 7 and 8. Again, it's a two-step inequality, but be careful here. My first step is to subtract 7 from both sides, not add. Because if I add 7 to both sides, I'm not going to eliminate the 7. 7 plus 7 is 14. I don't want a 14. I want that 7 gone. It's a positive 7. So the way to get rid of a positive 7 is to subtract a 7. Don't worry about this minus. This minus belongs to the 4w, not the 7. When I do that, I'm left with negative 4w. My sign did not flip because I simply subtracted something. Even though I subtracted a negative number, I'm subtracting, so that does not break the rule. Technically, I didn't subtract the negative number. Anyways, rule not broken. Now I got a multiplication of a w and a negative 4. I got to get rid of that. So the opposite of multiply by negative 4 is divide by negative 4. Ooh, am I multiplying or dividing by a negative? Why, yes I am. That is division by negative 4. Does my special little rule kick in? It does. So do I flip the symbol? But of course I do. We're going to do the flip here. So, gone and gone. And I have W. And I forgot to... I did this last time too. 19 minus 7 is actually a 12. So let me write that in here. Surprisingly, it's almost 5:30. It seems like my mistakes really kick in around 5:30. I need to go home. All right, so that should be a 12. Thank you for all those who probably are pointing and screaming at the mistake in class, Zoe. Anyways, I have to flip because we divided by a negative number, so it's pointing its sharp end. It's going to point the blunt end or the mouth now. And 12 divided by negative 4, unless I am totally off my game, is a negative 3. Open that. Close circle, heading in the right direction. There we go. Any questions on number 9? Let's finish this off while my brain is still functioning. Moving on to 10. Alrighty, 10. Here you have to translate, then solve, then graph. It's not so bad. We can make this work. Twice the number x increased by 5 is less than or equal to 7. So twice the number x, that's twice the number 2x. That's how I read that. Increased by 5, that's plus 5. Less than or equal to 7. Remember this? Less than or equal to. Sharp end towards the variable. Sharp end in the general direction of the variable, because the variable's here, and 7. And that's how I would translate it. And I didn't give you a whole lot of space to solve it, so and I didn't give myself much space to solve it, so I'm in the same boat as you. My first step, I would subtract 5 from both sides. And if I subtract 5 from both sides, first of all, nothing flips because I'm subtracting. And I'm left with 2x less than or equal to, and 7 minus 5 is 2. And then if I divide both sides by 2, and again I'm dividing by a positive number, nothing flips, and that's what I get. I'm doing a very short work order here. I'm hoping that the actual work is now fairly simple to you. So we have x is less than or equal to 1. That's a closed circle heading left. Again, I subtracted 5 from both sides, then I divided both sides by 2. I did not multiply or divide by a negative number, so nothing flipped. Questions about 10? 11 is next. All right, number 11. Let's work it out. The product of a negative 2 and a number y, the product always tells me it's a multiplication, so I'm multiplying a negative 2 and a number y. Sure, why not? Negative 2 times y. So negative 2y, which is the product of a negative 2 and a number y, decreased by 3. That tells me minus 3 or subtract 3. Is greater than 5. So greater than, my alligator has to face its mouth towards the variable. Like this, 5. All right, so once again, not a lot of room to solve this. So the first step is to add 3 to both sides. Adding, subtracting is not breaking the rule, which means I don't have to worry about flipping the sign. That means I have negative 2y is greater than, and if I add 3 to both sides, 5 plus 3 is 8. And then my last part though, I have to divide by a negative 2. I'll actually write that in here, kind of small, but divide by negative 2 on both sides. And does that break the rule? And the answer is yes, that breaks the rule. Do I need to flip now? I do need to flip because I'm dividing by a negative number. So y, and 8 divided by negative 2 is a negative 4. These two are gone. I have to flip my sign. Right now it's facing the mouth of the variable, now it has to face the back. So I have to do the flip. Alright, that's done, which means open circle heading left at negative 4. Questions at 11? You may have a problem like this on the quiz, probably just one. To keep it interesting, of course, all in the interest of keeping it interesting. Anyways, number 12 coming up. I'll save myself. Here you have to find and fix my mistake. Of course, I made an intentional mistake, not one of my usual mistakes. And you have to fix it. Find it first and then fix it. So I have a two-step inequality, kind of like the ones we worked on just a little bit ago, like these guys. And you have to solve it. So let's go ahead and see what I'm doing here. So I have a 5 here. It's a positive 5. And to get rid of a positive 5, I have to subtract 5 from both sides. And I did that. So that's good. I'll put a check here because that wasn't a mistake. 5 minus 5, that's gone. 14 minus 5 equals to 9. So that's right. That's good. So that's also like a check right here. That was good. Then I need to get rid of this negative 3. It's being multiplied, so the opposite is to divide by negative 3. But that's one of our exceptions. That's one of our rule breakers. If I divide by a negative number, I have to flip the symbol. Did I flip the symbol? No, my mistake was right here. And I had to flip the symbol right here to look like this. That was the only mistake. I forgot to flip my symbol, which is something that happens fairly often. But because I divided it by a negative, and if you divide or multiply by a negative number in an inequality, you have to flip the symbol. So not only that, now that tells me to go left. It's still a closed circle, but now I have to head left instead of heading right. So the other mistake, I guess there's two mistakes here. The graph is also wrong. I have to head in that direction. So that was number 12. Let me know if you have any questions. And that is it.